Good evening, everybody. Well, this is lovely.
It is lovely.
This is great. Well, last week we had a handful, but this week we've got a plethora, an abundance. I don't know what the collective noun is for a group of mindful people.
Is it because of the topic this week?
Maybe. I don't know. Well, I'll talk more about that later, because there was a specific incident.
I'm sure there is. There's always a story, isn't there?
Yeah, there was a specific incident that led to the topic. I mean, sometimes it's a bit haphazard and it just kind of, I just come up with something. But no, there was a specific incident this week and I thought that's appropriate.
Was it automobile related?
Pardon?
Was it automobile related?
No, there were no cars involved particularly. No, it wasn't. Right. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to one or two people that haven't come along for a while. I'm not singling anybody out. It's lovely to see you returning, and it's lovely to see some new faces as well, and another gentleman. We're always thin on the ground with chaps. I don't know what it is. Perhaps those chaps are just generally more mindful anyway. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to start any kind of sex wars at mindfulness group. Okay, for the benefit of those people that haven't visited us before, this is the Deal Mindfulness group, and we practice and encourage mindfulness. So it's all about being in the present moment, and the basic format is that we do a few little exercises, and there's a topic every week, and it's all very informal, it's all very relaxed. So as you know, if anybody has anything that they wish to chip in with or contribute, then you're more than welcome to. If you don't wish to chip in and contribute, equally, that's fine, it doesn't matter. We're free and easy. And the exercises that we do, the aim is that you then can take those away with you and practice them throughout the week, so you can cultivate your own mindful practice. And for me, I'm a believer that whilst it's nice if you can dictate an hour every day towards mindful meditation, but for the majority of us it's just not practical. We don't have an hour that we can solely dedicate to just sitting and being alive and enjoying being alive. But there are breaks throughout the day, occasions when we can bring mindfulness into our lives, and that's the aim of the exercises. So there's little bits that you can bring to your everyday activity just to help you to be more mindful in what you do. Right, without further ado, we'll begin with a little exercise, and then we can talk about the topic a little. So we shall begin with our sitting exercise, and this one, for those of you that haven't practiced it before, is all about engaging the senses. So it's our senses and the information that we receive from our senses that inform us and tell us what's going on around us, where we are in time and space, what's happening in this moment right now. Because this moment is the only moment that we have to experience being alive. The past has gone, future hasn't happened, it's all about this moment right now. And so by engaging our senses and learning to engage our senses and to be aware of the information our senses give us, enables us to be aware of what's going on around us. Because mindfulness is all about awareness of what's going on outside and awareness of what's going on inside as well. Right, so we begin by just having a little look around and seeing what we can see. And just taking in shapes and colours, seeing what we can see in this moment now. And once you've had a little bit of a look around, you may close your eyes and just bring your awareness to the weight of your body sat in the chair. So aware of your back resting against the back of the chair. Aware of gravity pulling down through your spine, down through your bottom into the seat. Aware of your feet in contact with the floor. Aware of how you are holding your arms and your hands. Aware that there is clothes against your skin. And then be aware of the very faint movement of air. So you can feel that on your hands and your face. Now take a nice breath through the nose and just be aware of smell. And then be aware of taste. Taste in your mouth at this moment in time. And then finally turn your awareness to sound and hearing. For the next few moments, you're just allowing sound to happen, allowing yourself to be aware of sound. And if your mind wanders, it doesn't matter, just be aware that your mind has wandered and just bring it back to listening. Just spend the next few moments just listening. Good. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. And hopefully everybody's feeling now nicely in the moment and aware of what's been going on around. Okay. So the topic for tonight, and if you will pardon my French, is that shit happens. And the topic came, I'll tell you the little story. I was moving some coal. There was, it was my wife's nan passed away a couple of months ago now, a month or so ago, yeah. And she had a coal bunker at the back of the garden, full of coal, and so we were removing the coal from the coal bunker. So we rocked up there with shovels and bags, filled up the bags, carried them out to put them in the car, and I'd done this. I filled all the bags and I carried them outside and I placed them in the back of the car, and I looked down at myself and I'd obviously got, bits of coal dust down the trousers and the hands were covered in coal dust and fairly grubby, and then I looked at my jumper and noticed that my jumper was a little dirty, and there was this sort of brown stuff on the front of my jumper. and I just assumed that there must have been some mud on one of these bags
Oh, no.
that I'd picked up to carry out, to put in the car. I went like that. to just sort of let the mud off, and in doing so, thought, that doesn't. That's not mud. No, that's definitely not mud. So I took the jumper off, and so quite literally, shit had happened to me at that point. And you know, I suppose I could have got quite upset about it. You know, it's not nice to have fecal matter on your clothing. But
Was it a fox?
I don't know what it was. I've no idea what the source of this was.
You would have known if it was a fox.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was. To be honest, I don't think it particularly matters. So yes, and it was in that moment I thought, well, I could get quite upset about this. I could be annoyed that I'm not only do I smell not particularly pleasant, but you know, this is on me. Or I can just accept it. You know, it's happened. I can't undo it. I can't go back in time and put the coal in a different bag or carry the bag differently or whatever. It is what it is. It has happened. So the best that I can do is just to accept it and take my jumper home to be washed thoroughly. So that was a very literal and definite instance of that happening and having to accept it. And then I was continuing with my reading. I like to read, as many of you will know. And I'm still ploughing through. There's a book called The Chimp Paradox that I've been ploughing my way through, which is a book by Professor Steve Peters, who's this psychiatrist, sports psychologist. And I got to the bit where he was talking about beliefs. And he talks about the beliefs that we hold, that are our lifestone, he refers to them as. So at the core of our being, we have a set of beliefs which kind of shape our view on life, shape our perspective. Now, some of those beliefs may come from experience, or some of them may just be, things that we have. Some of them may come from our faith, if we have a particular religious faith or whatever. Those beliefs may occupy our stone of life. But those beliefs can come from wherever. And the example that he had in the book was, he talks about whether you believe that life is fair or not. Some people will believe that life isn't fair. Stuff happens that is unfair. Whereas there may be other people that believe that life should be fair. That grew up believing the fairy tales that they were told by their parents, and that the princess will always marry the handsome prince, and the evil witch will always be punished or killed or whatever. Good will conquer evil, life is fair. Perhaps we believe that. And the examples that he cites in the book is that if you believe that life should be fair, then when it isn't fair, when things happen that you feel are unfair or unjust, then you're not going to cope with them particularly well, because it directly goes against one of your core beliefs. Whereas if you believe that life is unfair, then when things happen which are unfair, you're more likely to accept them. So I suppose on the one hand you might think of this as quite a pessimistic viewpoint to have, to go through life believing that life is unfair and that unjust things are always going to happen. But when he says that it's not about necessarily expecting unjust things to happen and unfair things to happen, and looking for unfair things to happen, just that if that's something that you believe, then when you do encounter that, you're more likely to be accepting of it. And so, given the topic for this week, we should, I guess, try and nurture a belief that shit will happen. Because it will. either literally or slightly more metaphorically. And if you have that belief that bad stuff will happen, then you are more likely to be able to accept it. And a pivotal element to mindfulness, not only is not awareness, so awareness of what's going on around and inside, but also acceptance. Being able to accept the present moment for what it is, whether it's good or bad. And if you have the belief that bad stuff is likely to happen, then you're going to be able to accept it a lot more. And also accept the fact that it's only happening in this moment, that in future moments it will be different. It was just one moment that I picked up this bag that had this nasty substance on it. I've not repeated that. It's not something that's repeatedly happened to me again and again and again. Not that I've been moving much coal over the intervening days, but figuratively speaking, it's not something that's repeated itself. It was isolated. So the best I could do was just accept it in that moment. Because in future moments, they were different. There wasn't that situation. And that, I mean, we can go on and we can think about whether we should have labelled it as good or bad. Was what happened to me in that moment, was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? It wasn't particularly pleasant, but no harm came from it. I wasn't injured. I didn't contract. I suppose I could have contracted some horrible disease, but I didn't. So it was like, I tried not to judge the situation and label it as good or bad, just accepted that that's what happened, and then we move on. Okay.
Jim, it could be.
Hello.
It could be. Are you still there?
Are you still there, Jess?
It could be a good thing because having washed it and got a nice fresh smell to it with conditioner, you'd appreciate in another moment.
But
a nice clean.
But then you see, there are other. It depends how you look at it. Because I discovered at that moment that was the particular situation. And so when the coal then found its way to its home, that we were aware that was the situation. So we didn't then, transport it into somebody's living room. Let's go! See ya! So potentially some good came of it. It avoided. It's much easier to clean it out of a jumper than it is to scrub it out of somebody's nice flock carpet. But I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You never quite know. You could judge it as being a bad experience in that moment, but the ramifications were that it came to light that this was, there was this on the bag, and so we were a bit more careful about where they were placed and what we did with them, so there weren't further repercussions. So it wasn't necessarily correct to just judge it a bit as a bad situation, because potentially some good came of it.
Interesting though that as soon as we decide not to judge it as bad, I start trying to think of reasons why it might be good, rather than just not touching anything.
That's it, yeah.
Because we go something.
You do,
how can I help
yeah.
turn that into a good thing?
Yeah, that's the challenge. That is the real challenge. Is just accepting it for what it is, and not. We are predisposed. I suppose it's it goes back to that primal part of our brain, which likes to identify things as being good or bad, so that we can gravitate towards the good stuff, because generally the bad stuff is either going to hurt us or make us unhappy. But bad stuff happens. Bad stuff happens a lot of the time. So if you don't label it as being bad, then bad stuff doesn't happen.
bad?
So there we go. So we don't label it. That's the lesson then.
Yeah.
So it's not that shit happens. It's just that we don't label it as being bad. Just things happen. That's all it is. It's just things.
Life happens, yeah.
Even the words that you say, I mean, if you say shit happens as opposed to things happen,
Yeah.
you're already
Negative,
giving it a negative spin.
Yeah.
But, you know,
That's it.
you say, well, things happen,
Things
happen.
they
Life
do.
is life, things...
And things will always happen. Things will continue to happen in this moment and in the next moment and in another moment. There will always be things. There will always be things happening. There will always things for us to experience. There will always be things that we feel, things that we think. And that's what's what's nice about mindfulness, isn't it? It gives you the opportunity to have a pause from things. You know, I've talked before about stuff. The fact that there's all this stuff that we do, stuff that we think, stuff that we accumulate, and stuff is something that we should try and avoid, because, and as is my mantra, we're not human beings, we're not human doings, we're not human thinkings. Get it right, Dawson. We're not human thinkings, we're not human doings, we're human beings. So we should just stop and allow ourselves to just be and take a break from things, from stuff, because it'll always be there. Okay. Right. Let's breathe. Breathing, for those of you that haven't visited Mindfulness Group before, we like to breathe. Everybody likes to breathe. Breathing's good. It's fairly essential. But also the breath is something that happens in the present moment. We can't breathe in the past, we can't breathe in the future, we can only breathe in this moment right now. And so if we can bring our awareness to our breath, then it brings us instantly to the present moment. And also it's quite a nice bridge. I talked, the exercise that we did at the beginning was about being aware of what's going on around us. And then I also said that mindfulness is not just about awareness of the external, but also the internal. And our breath is something that bridges that. Our breath is something that starts off as external. The air is out here, and then we breathe in, and the air goes in. And so so being aware of the breath allows us to sort of bridge that divide between the external and the internal. And as you'll see, when we bring our awareness to our breath, we can also be aware of the pause between the breath. And it's in that pause that we can actually start to begin to be aware of what's happening inside of us. When we're aware of that moment of peace between breaths, that's when also we can be aware of maybe where there isn't peace, where there is stuff happening at an emotional or at a cognitive level that maybe we're not necessarily aware of. And so in that pause between breaths, when it's still, we can just be aware of that. Sometimes I suppose it's, the pause between breaths, there is stillness, there is nothing happening, the body is still, and if the mind is still, being aware of that stillness, you're then aware of what was there before. It's kind of like when I was younger, I studied arts and I went to art college, and one of the things that we used to do is we used to do a lot of life drawing. So we'd turn up in a room and there would be some naked man or woman. I'm pointing over there. They might be there. Don't worry, there isn't a naked man. And they would be standing or seated or however, and we would draw them. And one of the things that we learned was that it's not necessarily about drawing what is there, but also about drawing what isn't there. So you look at the space, you look at the gaps. If somebody sat with their arm like that, there's a space here. And you don't draw the arm and the leg, you draw the space. and you know, you draw the spaces, and you as much as you're aware of what is there, you're aware of what isn't there, and by focusing on what isn't there, it then allows you to be aware of what is there, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? You know, you look at the gaps, you look at the space, and in looking at the space and the nothingness, you're then able to develop a drawing of what actually is there. And it's the same thing with that, being aware of the space, the pause between breaths. By being aware of the space, aware of the nothingness, it allows you to develop an understanding and allows you to develop an awareness of what actually is there. So if there is emotional stuff going on, or you know, thoughts and ideas, invasive thoughts, anxiety, whatever it is, by being aware of the space where there is nothing, allows you to also gain an understanding of those other aspects. So let's breathe. So you may close your eyes if you wish, you don't have to keep your eyes open. And we begin by just being aware of the breath at the nostrils. And just aware of breathing in and breathing out. Air entering the body at the nostrils and the air leaving the body via the nostrils. Now you can follow that breath back slightly, and you can actually be aware of the breath behind the soft palate, the back of the throat. And then follow it down a little bit further and be aware of your breath at the top of your chest as your lungs inflate and deflate. And here you can be aware of the movement, the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe in and breathe out. Just follow that movement for the next few breaths. Now be aware of the breath right down at the diaphragm, at the base of your lungs. Feel that movement, aware of the movement of the diaphragm of your stomach. And if you like, you can actually use this as an opportunity to exhale completely. Push the diaphragm right up so you feel all of the air being pushed out of our lungs. We have a tendency to breathe at a quite shallow level quite frequently, so sometimes it's good to just expel all of the air. When you do that, you can really feel the movement within your body. Now I'd ask you to just relax, breathe nice and steadily, and become aware of those three component parts of the breath. So you breathe in, you breathe out, and then there is a pause before you breathe in again. And for the next few breaths, just be aware of each of those three parts. So aware of breathing in, aware of breathing out, and then aware of that stillness and aware of that pause in between breaths. And if your mind wanders, it doesn't matter. Just be aware that thoughts or ideas have crept into your head. Accept it and then just bring the awareness back to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out, and then the pause. And that's the real practice, the real art of being mindful is when you're following your breath and your mind wanders, which it will, just constantly bringing it back to the breath, bringing it back to that thing which is always happening, but which is happening in the present moment. And now for the next few moments, I'd like to really bring your awareness to that pause. It's only a short space in between breaths. And in that pause between breaths, I'd like to just be aware of every moment of that pause. that pause, be aware of the stillness. In that pause, you're not doing anything, you don't need to think anything, just be. Just be alive in this moment, absolutely and completely being alive just within that pause between breaths. As we are aware of that stillness and enjoy that stillness, I should just invite the bowl to sound. As we continue that awareness of our breath in the present moment, we breathe in and feel alive, aware that we are alive and that in breathing in we are sustaining our life. And then as we breathe out, we smile and are aware of where that smile emanates from. Because a smile isn't just a movement of the muscles around the mouth. A smile emanates from somewhere within our being. So we breathe in and feel alive, and we breathe out and smile at life and connect with that smile. And then we can just allow that smile to dissolve into the pause between breaths. Breathe in and feel alive. Breathe out and smile at life. Allow the smile to dissolve into the pause. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. In the past few weeks, we've kept the breathing bit to the end, and sometimes it's felt a bit rushed. It's kind of like, oh crikey, we best get the breathing bit in, nearly time to go. So I thought we'd introduce it a bit earlier, elongate it, because I think it's incredibly useful and powerful. Certainly for me, it's the antidote to the stuff that happens. It's that makes you more accepting. When you do find yourself smeared with whatever it is, just breathing, being aware of the breath, enables you to not label things and enables you to be more accepting. So yeah, I thought it was important to breathe a little more. You see. Does anybody have anything that they wish to
I
add?
think that pause is quite hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, it's like, not natural as such.
Well, often it's for some people they've never been aware of it before. Sometimes, for some, the first time that they maybe do that exercise, the first time that I mention it to them, they'll go, oh no, actually I've never been aware of the fact that between each breath there is a pause. You just assume you breathe in and out, and that's all you do, in and out, in and out. But actually no, there is that third part, and even when you're out of breath, if you've been exercising, you've been walking quickly or running, and you're breathing quite quickly, there is still very, very small pause, tiny little pause between breathing in and breathing out. So it's always there, it's always been there since you first, emerged into this world, since the very first breath you took, and all the millions of breaths that you've taken between that point and this breath now. There has always been that small pause, but for many people they've never been aware of it. And so when it is something that's quite new to you, it is difficult, or there's an uncertainty to it. Yeah, but it comes with practice. It's practice. The more you become aware of it, and it's incredibly powerful, because as you become aware of it, you realise that there is an incredible stillness in that pause. The body is still. You're not breathing in, you're not breathing out, it is still. And regardless of what is happening around you, I've often said about that first exercise, the sitting exercise, you can do that anywhere. It's not about peace and quiet, it's not about escaping and finding peace and quiet. It is about being aware of whatever is presented to you, even if they are digging up the road outside, or the kids are screaming right next to you, not necessarily in the room next door. Being aware of it and accepting it. And even if everything's kicking off, even if shit is happening, that pause still exists between your breath. That is a constant. Whatever stuff is happening around you, good or bad, or if we refuse to label them stuff, things, regardless of where you are, what is happening, that pause is always there. In between each breath, there's always that pause. So if you need an anchor point, that's it. That's your anchor point. You just bring your awareness to that pause, and that anchors you to the present moment, brings you to the present moment. And because it's still, because there's that moment of peace, it allows you to be a bit more accepting. But it's not easy. That's why it's important to practice. Yes.
I went on one of those segways on Monday that I never,
Oh, right.
And my mum was going, do this, do that, do it. And I thought, just close your eyes and breathe. And I was still.
Yes.
And then I was fine.
And it worked.
So
Good.
I went to that quiet place. Even though I was standing on this thing doing it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Down there. Pause or whatever. My body was
Because all of those other thoughts, all of that noise that happened, interfered with your ability to, just operate your limbs properly and balance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've had it. It's been quite taxing for me over the last week or so. We've now my daughter is 10. I forgot them for a minute. She's 10, but she has after the summer holidays there is the Kent test, and she's a clever girl, and she would like to go to grammar school. She's got her heart set on going to grammar school, and I'd like her to have every opportunity. I'm not particularly snobby or anything, but she would like to go. She's bright enough to go, so we've been helping her and enabling her, and we bought the books with the test papers in and all that stuff so she can practice. But she's been getting herself all wound up about it and worked up. And I've said, it doesn't matter. I've been as mindful as I can be and as calm as I can be. It really doesn't matter at the moment. It's just about practice. It's just familiarisation. You need to get your mind working so that you can, when you do take the test, you're prepared and you can feel confident. But she's experienced the same. She experienced the same as you on the Segway. She got herself slightly worked up, a bit upset, and her brain stopped working. And she couldn't do it. Sitting in a Pippin exam doing my shorthand and typing, I couldn't spell off. Well, it's amazing,
I could not spell off. And it didn't matter what I wrote, it just didn't. It's not
there, is it? If you
it just gone.
It's just
Couldn't spell off.
And that we make stuff happen to ourselves.
Absolutely.
we bring the stuff on ourselves. When we're not mindful, we bring it on ourselves, and then it interferes with our capacity to do even the simplest things. I mean, a Segway is supposed to be incredibly easy to.
And it was when I got down and just.
And that's it. And the spelling of two-letter words is supposed to be something which is relatively straightforward.
But when children are faced with this grammar school test, they do go under a lot of pressure.
It is. Well, that's the thing. I don't want it to feel.
No, my granddaughter's just done the same thing, and it seems. I don't know. It seems to be a be-all and end-all.
Well, that's it, and that's what I've been trying to instill in her. That it really doesn't. It's not the end of the world.
No, that's right.
It's not life and death.
But I think the schools put them under that sort of pressure, don't they?
Well, most of the time it's the parents.
Do you think? Fair enough.
They want their child to go to school, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the parents put a lot of pressure on their kids because they, and I suppose, and particularly in Deal, because of all the problems that they've had at Castle, it's viewed very negatively at the moment because there have been so many problems there with the merger and all that didn't really work out as well as it would. I'm not going to sit here and make any judgments on it. I wasn't there. I wasn't involved in any of that, and I don't know the answers or the solutions necessarily. But it's not viewed in a particularly good light at the moment. So I think that adds a lot of other pressure. People say, "Well, I don't want don't want my kids going to Castle. I want them to go elsewhere." So it puts extra pressure on.
Stuff.
Pressure, stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
We not only does it just happen, but for some people they create it themselves, make it happen to themselves, and it's not a mindful way to. It's not a mindful way to be. There's enough of it out there. Sometimes it rains down. We don't need to create more of it.
It's a difficult lesson for children, though.
Oh, it is. It's very hard.
Very difficult.
And it is because children generally are quite in the moment.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
They don't necessarily think about consequences. They just see the situation as it is and
go with the flow.
Yeah, act as they necessarily see fit without necessarily, they don't give too much concern to what happened yesterday or what the consequences may be. Generally, they are quite mindful. So it's a difficult thing to instill within children. But that's not to say that it can't be done. I don't know quite how I'm going to do it with my daughter. I do tell her to breathe. I am breathing, she says.
What do you think I'm doing?
And that did actually happen. I am breathing. Okay, good. Carry on.
Don't stop.
Please don't stop, otherwise you definitely won't be able to take the test. Fun and games. Fun and games. Okay.
Going back to breathing on the meditation, I've done a fair bit of meditation.
Yes.
Body swaying other ways.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like you said about pause in between.
Yes.
So if you're in a deep meditation, you don't get that actually because your breathing comes so light. It's like you're hardly breathing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's, that might not be for everybody's bit, but yeah.
So did you find that just then when we were doing it, or was it?
No, it's the first time I really felt the pause. Really.
Right.
I didn't
Okay.
really.
Yeah.
I do a lot of body sway,
Yeah.
Inspiring. It's like a deep meditation. It's different. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? There are lots of different states of awareness.
Yeah.
Different levels of consciousness.
Consciousness is right.
That's it. But it's being aware of those.
Yeah.
And I suppose aware of those at different times. So yeah, interesting that you've got different perspective,
definitely.
experience of it yourself.
I'm going to tease out, but it's like I use a lot of crystals as well for meditation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a lot deeper, but I realised just then that the pause, and it's like this is about outside as well. I'll go out to a park and I can concentrate on someone using a drill or a photo stick, and I can meditate to that. But it's different in here. That pause was quite different to what I'm used to. Very different.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
The difference is always good.
Meditation. Easier than meditation. Meditation takes a long time to do you any benefit.
Yeah.
Whereas that one little breathe and pause is so beneficial and it's instant.
I've tried meditation many times.
Yes, you have done it.
But I find this, I've been coming since Jim started this group a year ago. Not every single week, but as much as we can.
Yeah.
And I'm putting it into practice now without even realising it.
That's right.
Events happen, whereas another time I would have gone, and I just think, no, just deal with it.
Yeah,
Accept
help
it.
me a lot as well.
Dropping all your china the other day.
Like dropping
I
on
was
the china.
impressed.
You were, weren't
I
you?
was impressed.
That's what happened to get the china. That's fine. Broke a load of it.
Oh no.
And I just thought, no, it's happened. Again.
To the best china.
But Carol meditates very well, don't you? 'Cause but I could never do that. I can never completely switch off. But with this, I can.
But that's the thing. That's what I like to sort of, I suppose, promote with the group. That if you can sit and do the deep meditation stuff you do, then that's great.
Good.
That's great.
Oh, does it?
Yes, darling.
Yeah.
It's not an instant fix like this is.
Well, yeah.
It really isn't.
I have the patience with this, but I don't have the patience
No,
with it.
but it takes you straight to do you any good.
That's why I've missed it so much. I have.
Yeah.
And I do agree. It certainly helps when there's a group of group.
Yeah.
And also when you've got somebody sat in a chair going, right, just be aware of this.
Yeah.
If you mind
that
wanders,
helps,
bring it
yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Because that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Because brains do that. That's what the mind does. It's always
Bring it back to the
Tick,
moment.
tick.
chugging away
It does, doesn't
there.
it? Oh.
And it's very easy to sit, and before you know it, you're off and you've planned what you're going to buy from Tesco's tomorrow, and shopping, and the fact that you've got to, get your passport photos done, and this, that, and the other. And before you know it, 10 minutes of daydreaming.
Yeah. Sometimes with the mindfulness, you can, even if it's 5 minutes, you said, if you've got 5 minutes time, you can bring it, do.
Yeah,
It's good,
but
isn't it?
it can. But that's, I
Not
suppose
even
that's
5, I suppose.
that's it. That's what I hope to convey is that if you can do an hour, brilliant. If you can do 5 minutes, brilliant.
Yeah.
If you can do 2 seconds, brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah.
However much you're able to do. And I don't like to say do. It's not about doing. It's about being. However long you are able to be mindful for, whether it's 2 seconds, 5 minutes, an hour, brilliant. Just as much as you can. Because your life happens in this moment. And if you are not aware of this moment, then you're missing out. You're missing out on being alive. And before you know it, you might have been able to plan your shopping list and remember all your to-dos. But, when you get to the point where you are taking that final breath, you're not going to think, oh, well, I'm glad I planned that shopping list. I'm glad I didn't forget to buy, bread. that would have been a life lesson.
Lovely, isn't it? Great.
Right, what we got? Right, let's finish with a clap. Let's have a clap. I like a clap. So, just to finish off, we clap as one. We don't always do this, but it's quite a nice exercise. So all I ask you to do is just watch me. And when I clap, you clap. And the aim is that it's one clap. It's not, loads of people, which is nice tonight, clapping randomly. One clap.
There's just a few of us, then it's easier.
It is easier, but that's just going to be more of a challenge to us.
Yeah.
In the numbers.
Can't see.
No, it's particularly...
Well, he's going to have to rely on
Be mindful.
intuition.
I can normally tell when Jim's going to do it by his eye. Look at his eye.
There you go. I'll arrange the furniture just for your benefit.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and I won't catch you out by doing that. As tempting as it is, I won't. Okay. So when I clap, you clap, and the aim is that it's just one clap. Okay. Here we go. That was good for the first one.
That was good.
Wasn't it? First one's usually rubbish, but that was good. You're all aware. See, you're all in the moment, aware, following me, watching. Poised. It still reminds me of Blazing Saddles.
I'm sure we should go.
Just that bit of the chest piece. Only that bit. Only that bit. Oh, that was a good one. Two more. Oh, one clap.
Yay!
I'm tempted to, in Star Wars, when Luke Skywalker's learning to be a Jedi, and Obi-Wan makes him put the helmet on so he can't see, and he has to just use the Force to fight with that little thing that's flying around. I wonder if it'd ever work where everybody just closes their eyes, uses the mindful Force. I don't think it would, but maybe we'll try that.
We should try it.
Maybe we should. We'll start with the smaller group and we'll build up. So I'm not going to try that. But thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Thank you
Lovely,
very much.
lovely to see you all. Great to have such a group tonight. I've enjoyed myself. I hope you have, and I look forward to seeing you all again at in some future moment. Go in peace.
Thank you.